Hi everyone, this is Jason with Tabletop Rebellion, and today I have a very special unboxing for you. If you heard one of our recent podcasts, we talked a lot about customizable card games and their place in the board game genre. And when I was recently visiting my parents up in North Carolina, I came across this particular box in a local game store. It is the introductory two-player game for the Star Wars customizable card game made by Decipher in 1995. Now, Decipher was a subsidiary of Parker Brothers at the time, and they were the ones who had the Star Wars license for customizable card games, and they produced this two-player set, which has 2 full decks that can be played with you and someone else, which is really interesting because even though this game is no longer being produced and even though it had lots of expansion sets, this particular box could live on a board game shelf and be picked up at any time for anybody who's got the patience to learn the rules. It's, as others have said, it's a very granular game. The rule book is quite extensive, although this is the very first set, so this was before they added a lot of additional game elements, so it does make it a little bit more accessible to those who are familiar with card games, especially customizable card games, and kind of the depth that some of those rule sets can have. Now, this particular box was only $24.99. I believe you can actually pick this up still pretty easily, even though the rest of the cards are pretty hard to find if you wanted to get more of the cards and do more customization. If you're interested in just another game for the shelf, two-player deck game, kind of like what Wizards of the Coast does with Magic the Gathering sometimes, this is certainly an option, especially if you're a big Star Wars fan. There was a lot of Star Wars lore printed on these cards, and it was really exciting. Now, it comes with the instruction book. It looks pretty daunting. There's a ton of icons, which is really interesting for the very first set of a card game to be so detailed and in depth. But this particular company was... They often did this with their games. It also came with the card list in the middle of the instruction book, and finally got to the rules and the different stages of the game. So the rules actually fit on about 3 to 4 pages. They're just quite detailed, and even rather extensive glossary, which is pretty interesting considering this is the very first product for this game. Nice proof of purchase down the bottom right hand corner, if you remember such things that were often required before the widespread age of the internet. Now, it did come with one unlimited edition booster pack, which I'm currently planning on keeping sealed. It does have a lot of nostalgic memory for me, and I'm really curious to see what's inside, but I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to make me a millionaire, so I think I'm going to keep it sealed for now, because it would just be too tempting to try and find more and more packs if I did actually open it and see what was inside. The pack's still in pretty good condition, and then it comes with the 2 decks, and honestly, there really is not much else in the box. You've got these 2 decks, and the rest of the box is empty. A lot of dead air, which is surprising. I guess the rule book was really what took all the space and why the box was the size it was. So these decks are shrink wrapped, and they do have a little tab on them, although after 25 years, I think this worn down a little bit, but there's a double layer here, so I don't think I'm have any risk of damaging the cards themselves trying to open them up. Luke and Darth Vader, which are the first cards you see in each of these decks, were unique to this particular set. You could not find them anywhere else. They're not very powerful, but they have some great artwork, and all the artwork from this card game was actually screenshots from the film, which is really exciting. And a lot of people who played this card game learned a lot about Star Wars just from all the flavor texts at the top of each of these cards. The whole stories of Star Wars information was built into these cards. Sheevian Wolfman, Rebel Trooper, Tals, CZ3, like who even knew that droid had a name, right? So I'm not going to go through all the cards. We'll just flip through them real fast after just seeing a couple more of these. Lots of different card types, which really made this game... There was a barrier of entry, I think, which from a customizable card game standpoint, it does limit your customers if it is hard to get in. And I think the extensiveness of the cards themselves did make it a little bit challenging to grab new players, especially when customizable card games were fairly new on the market. Surprise Assault, We're Doomed, Hans Dice, some just great A New Hope nostalgia really in here. And of course, A New Hope is a film that people continue to watch to this day and is the iconic Star Wars film that kind of links everything all together. And aside from when they made this game and they made these sets, they did make each set based on an era of films, an era of the film, and typically like one of the planets, right? There was a Cloud City set that was nothing but stuff that happened in Cloud City. There was a Tatooine set. This 2-player set and the premiere set really focused mostly on Tatooine and the Death Star to give some variety, but as the sets went on, they added more and more. There was a dark side deck and a light side deck. The cards can never, ever mix. You can never have one or the other. The backs of the cards were actually unique depending on what faction you were playing. And it was always a dark side versus a light side. So if you ever customize your decks beyond this, you would be required to go to tournaments with one of each type of deck. And it was randomly selected which deck you'd be playing per match. So that's about it. I think the introductory 2-player game is a great deck game that you can have on your shelf as a board gamer. If you're really interested in Star Wars, again, this game, even though it is 25 years old, there are plenty of sealed copies of them out there, especially if you look on eBay. I was shocked to find this one inside a local game store. But definitely keep your eyes out if you're interested in Star Wars brand, the Star Wars IP, and just a really fun card game. I have tons of great memories from this, playing this back in the 90s, and I think you can make your own memories as well. Well, that about does it for this video. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like button and subscribe so you can be kept up to date with all the latest videos here at Tabletop Rebellion.